Now that portaling season is over, the Bruins, they're out there recruiting. And they've already gotten two 2026 commits in the matter of a couple of days. DeShaun Foster and the Bruins, they're about to feast.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Hey, check out Game Time because if you download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Welcome back, everydayers. As we get started today, we started with a commitment. I recorded the last episode of Locked On UCLA talking about the previous day's commitment of Matthew Muasau, the brother of former UCLA Bruin Darius, who's in the NFL now. And then, right as I posted it, what happened? Of course, there was a commitment. UCLA lands Anthony Jones, an edge, in 2026. So going close to 6 months without commitments, UCLA's first 2026 committed back in March of 2024. Then they slowly built up in the summer months, and you're like, okay, liking where this is going. DeShaun Foster clearly has some vision of the future, even though they were only receivers at the time. And then back-to-back defensive commits. The Bruins know exactly what they need to bolster the defensive line, bolster the edge, to bolster everything, beef up, and then next thing you know, they got Muasau followed by Anthony Jones. So Jones, 2026 Irvine Crane Lutheran grad expected. This is a guy who told rivals Adam Gorney that one, UCLA beat out Tennessee and Washington. That's huge. This is one of the top ranked players in the country at this position, a top 20 player at the defensive end position, and one of the 35 best players in the state of California, according to Rivals. So after UCLA gets a linebacker, they need any and all linebackers, considering they lost them to the portal. They lost a lot to the NFL. The Bruins they didn't lose one, but they're not getting a 2025 commit till 2027 in Weston Port. It's huge that they go get Muasau. And then clearly they need some sort of help on the defensive line or to build for the future. Getting Jones is huge. And now you're going to see different ratings. Rivals has him as a 4-star. 24/7 Sports has him as a 3-star. But this is crucial. And the big thing is this guy, 6'5", 260 pounds. And he's been to a couple of games at the Rose Bowl. He's been on campus a few times. I'm not even sure if he's taken his official visit yet. All right. He's been to the prospect camp. His official visit, according to Rivals, is June 6th to 8th. So he's committed before the official visit just to make it even sweeter. More of a homecoming, if you will, than, he's still deciding. No, he's committed and he hasn't even taken the official visit. He's been around. Talked about how Stacy Ford, the director of player personnel, that relationship was huge. So we're starting to see DeShaun Foster's hires, even dating back to last year, sweeping changes to recruiting first. He completely overhauled what the recruiting mindset was and the people in charge of player personnel, GMs. And we've started to see that pay dividends now when it came to the portal recruiting in the spring, in the winter, and the early portal period. Now, as the Bruins have completely shifted their focus to 2026 and beyond, you hear this guy saying, yeah, really, this is what Jones had to say. Really, the relationship is key. I've been knowing Coach Stacy Ford, who is the head of personnel up there. I've been knowing him since 8th grade. So that's a guy, he's always been tapped in with me. Had a good relationship with the new D-line coach, Jethro Franklin. So you're helping out with the new coaches, continuing to build relationships. The guys DeShaun Foster's put in positions of recruiting or player negotiations or player relationships to bring them to UCLA, at least bring them in. It's working out. And now this is a class that's ranked closer to the top 40 than it was to the top 60 or 70. According to Rivals, the Bruins have 4 4-star commits. Who are they? Well, I'll tell you right now because some places have differing opinions on who those guys might be. But let's go over that in just a moment. The one thing, though, that is kind of funny, Sacramento State has a higher rated 2026 recruiting class. All right. Sac State is trying to go FBS. You've got Anthony Jones, 4-star. You've got Jaron Pula, 4-star, Kenan Pula, 4-star, Jonas Smith, 4-star, Kenneth Moore, and Matthew Moisau, who are both 3-stars. Something about that, Jones adds to the Southern California flavor for this 2026 class. It's Jones, Moisau, Moore, and Smith, who are all Rancho Santa Margarita, or not all Rancho Santa Margarita, they're all SoCal kids, and the Pula brothers are hailing from Utah. So keeping the West Coast, the Western narrative, recruiting, keeping that local recruiting base, and again, the family, the local recruiting that DeShaun Foster is putting out as a message with what his actions are by recruiting the guys locally, by getting the commits locally, keeping the younger brothers of former Bruins in the family, or at least trying to go after them. I already talked about Talanoa Ili. I'll talk a little bit more next, who might be crystal ball to USC with the Bruins. Like, hey, got family relationships here at UCLA. Host a big family official visit. That's what DeShaun Foster is wanting to give to these guys, saying, hey, come to the Bruins, and that's huge. And again, we've already seen a lot of defensive talent leave. After 2023, mostly on the D-line. After 2024, a lot from the linebacking room. And in back-to-back days, here in the middle of May, UCLA said, all right, it's time to flip the focus, get the commits, and this is even before an official visit or two. So I'm starting to think we will see a lot more commits pick up really quickly in the months of May to June to the summer, where the 2026 class, it's not going to end up in the 40s. Hopefully ends up in the top 25, and maybe they'll surprise us like the Bruins did with their transfer class. One of the best transfer classes UCLA's had in a few years. I know Chip Kelly made his work in the transfer portal. The Bruins are looking to have a good transfer class in 2025 and a good recruiting class at the high school ranks in 2026. So good, technically 4 stars if you go to Rivals, only 1 if you look at 24/7 Sports, but one has them just about the same ranking in the top, just outside the top 40. And that number is about to change. So another commit comes in, and I think the Bruins will be better off for it. They know their positions of need. They know they have to attack the defense. They've got themselves set up for the future offensively, at least for now, before the portal kicks in and NIL changes and everything. And until that happens, UCLA has to attack 2026, and there's even more guys they could attack in 2027, 2026, and beyond. We'll tell you what other experts have to say on Locked On UCLA next. There's nothing like the playoffs. There's nothing like a summer season when you're trying to go to baseball games. There's nothing like the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's nothing like just being at a game in general. I can think about times, and a specific time where I went with my brother, we're like, you know what, let's go last minute. It was Dodgers-Giants 4 years ago. And what happened? It was one of the greatest games I've ever been to. Dodgers down 5 runs, come back at a walk-off bomb. Endless memories and joys for a lifetime with my brother. But where do you get those tickets? How can you get those last-minute memories? You go to Game Time. And earlier in the most recent NBA season, think about the team that's fighting to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Think about the Knicks, the Celtics, big time. I can tell you, I went to Game Time and got my last-minute tickets when the NBA Cup was going on, and I wanted to check out Madison Square Garden. And I can tell you it's the best arena. And I can tell you it's a very fun, energetic place to go watch a game. And if you want to go save up to 60% off in great sections, think about it. Go to Game Time. It doesn't just have to be, obviously, the Knicks. You can go anywhere. Think about the Dodger tickets. You want to save some last-minute prices? You go to Game Time and utilize those tickets. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit me with 110% of the difference. All right? And think about the NFL schedule. Just got released. Maybe you're trying to go to Vegas, see the Raiders. Maybe you're trying to go see a game in your own backyard in Los Angeles at SoFi. You can find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. And hey, Game Time makes scoring NFL tickets just as easy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. That's Locked On College. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Cruising on, second segment, we're talking more recruiting for Locked On UCLA. And what are some guys that the Bruins are looking at? So on a recent write-up from Rivals, Adam Gorney, UCLA's in on quite a few guys, and that's the expectation. You flip the script, the Bruins have done as much as they can to make their 2025 roster not just adequate, but fairly competitive for their schedule for the Big Ten. And if you're really feeling spicy, you could say dark horse to do something real crazy. All right, that's another conversation. That's another day. The mindset has shifted to go to the future. Because as much as you want to recruit this year and re-recruit your athletes and go get better players to recruit over the former Chip Kelly recruits or the guys you brought in last year or the guys who are getting paid more from other schools, UCLA has to shift their focus to the future. So Adam Gorney has talked a lot about what UCLA is going after in their recruiting in future seasons, all right? So some of the guys UCLA is going after, the Bruins, you're going to hear a theme here. Defense, replenish the talent. They got a new D-line coach. Kaika Malloy, hopefully he's the D coordinator of the future. Maybe he gets a head coaching job if he continues to succeed at UCLA. But right now, he's been doing a good job at UCLA, working his way up to a position of power as the D coordinator. Sione Felila, this is an Oak Hills guy from Hesperia. Class of 2027, 3-star, maybe could rise to a 4-star. This is a guy who just recently went to Westwood, according to Adam Gorney from Rivals, was like, hey, love the event, super fun. Coaches were transparent. UCLA is in the mix with Oregon, Notre Dame, and Utah. All right? So you got Notre Dame, Utah, Oregon. That's a type of player where if those guys are in it, you know you're doing something good. Utah is always physical. Notre Dame's certainly physical. Oregon, they want to be more physical with Dan Lanning up front, defensively and offensively. That's why they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten last year. They've been consistent with the best teams in the Pac-12 at the end of its reign, with Oregon near the top for most of those couple years with Dan Lanning. So Felila, that's a guy UCLA sees, 6'2", 276. Okay, they're trying to build relationships with players. And here's the thing that was quoted just briefly in this little write-up about Felila. The event was super fun. And you're like, okay, you think whatever, but that's just how it is. In recruiting, every kid tries on 30 billion jerseys. They have their own little photo shoot of what they would look like in a UCLA jersey, insert team's jersey. Maybe they get chains. Maybe they look cool. They get a video. That's what they've been doing with UCLA players. That's not something you would get with Chip Kelly. Now, it'd be funny if Chip Kelly had taken on the Brian Kelly persona, where he's just sitting there and dancing with the LSU guys in the same photo shoot, which was kind of wacky, wild, and weird. But Chip Kelly wouldn't do that, and he's not going to do that. He might show his face more when he was at the Ohio State University, right, as a Buckeyes offensive coordinator. Doesn't have to do that now that he's the Raiders offensive coordinator. But, you know, Chip Kelly wouldn't do that as a head coach. DeShaun Foster, maybe he's not going full Brian Kelly, but he's going a lot better than Chip Kelly, which was borderline nothing near the end of his tenure. Now, the Bruins did shell out a decent NIL opportunity to Dante Moore to get him to come to UCLA to be their freshman starting quarterback for a few games. But it's consistency. Because if you don't build the O-line, you don't build these relationships, the players are going to interact a lot with these assistant coaches, these director player personnel. Not everybody's going to go up and talk to DeShaun Foster. That's a huge roster. But they need to maintain the relationships with the leader of the program, the university as a whole, and prove that, hey, UCLA is just not sticking in the background and not caring. They have events, spring showcase, Friday night showcase, events that host families. On Mother's Day, if families are coming out. They understand. DeShaun Foster gets it. And just something as little as, oh, the event was super fun. They didn't used to be. They didn't used to be in recent history under Chip Kelly. All right? Cite attendance. Cite anything you want. Cite any boring quote. Yes, I know Chip Kelly was more quotable than DeShaun Foster. But you can tell Foster has a vision and he's getting it. So, Sione Felila, a 6'2" defensive tackle. The Bruins are in on him. We'll see if that leads to something. That's a lot of big-time players, a Big 12 team, basically an ACC team in Notre Dame, obviously independent, in Oregon, a lot of big NIL players. We'll see if that factors into a decision, but still plenty of time to win that recruiting battle. Then there's a safety, 6'1" from Provo, Utah, class of 2026, who's the 5th best ranked player in the state of Utah, top 30 at his position. Aisa Galila, I'm probably saying that name wrong. I definitely am. But if Utah and BYU are trying to win this recruiting battle for a 4-star safety, if UCLA's in it, according to Adam Gorney, they could find themselves as a winner. But with 2 in-state recruiting powerhouses, Big 12 rivals who are bolstering their NIL budgets between BYU and Utah, I'm not entirely sure UCLA would win that battle. And considering all the work the Bruins did in the transfer portal to add in the secondary, I think they might lose this one. This kid might or any safety for that matter, or any DB could say, okay, how many of these guys are going to leave? How many of these guys might transition into a new position next year? Or, from corner to safety. There's so many DBs at UCLA right now with what they brought in just this offseason. It can be tough to recruit a 2026 DB, which is why you might see a lot more focus on the linebackers, the defensive line, offensive line. Hint, hint, hint. You can never have enough depth at the offensive line position. And if you keep going, you're like, okay, where's UCLA going? As I already discussed in the last episode, Talanoa Ely was hosted by the Bruins on a Mother's Day breakfast, has the relationship with UCLA, has family members like the Imaleavas and another cousin who came on the trip as well. There's the family atmosphere DeShaun Foster is trying to build and bring. And while Ely is one of the best at his position in the state, represents a position of need for UCLA, one of the top 100 players nationally, one of the top 5 in his position overall in the country. This year's class would absolutely overhaul the class and just jump the Bruins up the rankings if they can steal this crystal ball to USC and flip this crystal ball, if you will, to UCLA, a 4-star, which would be maybe their 5th 4-star the UCLA Bruins could get according to some recruiting outlets. That would be huge. Now, if they can flip that, that's one thing. I'm not sure they will. USC has put up quite a stacked 2026 recruiting class, and they already had a guy just decommit. That could be Ely to USC. I hate to say it, but the Bruins are in it, and they didn't used to be in these conversations. And now they got to go start stealing some of these guys, like the Bruins did in the spring portal, in the winter portal. Now they're trying to do that at the high school level. And speaking of recruiting, think of the class of 2026, Cooper Jaworski, hailing from San Juan Hills, San Juan Capistrano, class of 2026, 6'3" offensive lineman, just shy of 300 pounds. It's a battle between Auburn, UCLA's involved, and this is where Andy Kwan is going to have a big impact when he's recruiting in the Southern California area, right? You think of the Trinity League from the Mater Deis, the St. John Boscos. Well, deep in Orange County and San Juan Capistrano, it's not just Jay Serra. There are big-time football teams in the Orange County area, near the beach towns, near those sleepy towns, that they have got football players too, like at San Juan Hills. And Jaworski, who doesn't have a ranking right now according to Rivals, could be another beefy addition. Just any addition on the offensive line would be huge. But here's a guy that might get a lot more offers in 2026, according to Adam Gorney, in terms of, UCLA's in it. The Bruins, what did I say? Linebacker, D-line, and beefing up the O-line. And just on that list, UCLA right there. In 2027 and 2026, O-lineman, D-lineman, linebacker. That is what they're targeting right now in this recruiting class. Now, yes, you can go get a quarterback. Go find the local guy in SoCal that's the 4 or 5-star. Cool. But the Bruins have set themselves up for success, and now they're continuing to battle for these top recruits. Another class of 26 from Utah with Taika Malloy and Jethro Franklin. It's Lopeti Moala, a 3-star D lineman from Gorney of Rivals, saying, hey, this is somebody UCLA could go after. And think about it. D lineman, linebackers, O lineman. That is the intense focus, and the Bruins have to get some of these guys to commit. Maybe those are the guys that aren't, but just listing some of those guys from the defensive edge position, from D tackle, you have an idea of what the Bruins are completely focusing on. Where the D coordinator and his position coach are going, where Andy Kwan is trying to maybe infiltrate some of these other places where schools have their claws on, this is our recruiting pipeline. No. Not any longer. UCLA is the place to go, hopefully, with the Big Ten deal, with maybe the new energy DeShaun Foster is bringing. That's what the Bruins have looked like fighting for positions going forward. All right, D linemen, linebackers, and offensive linemen. If you're going to see a string of recruits committing in the summer, I think we'll see a lot of those guys committing soon. Not necessarily these specific players, who most of the guys, I can't even say their names, and hopefully when they get their names mentioned a little bit more, get those pronunciations right. It's, what are they doing and how can they help UCLA in the future? All right. Speaking of helping UCLA in the future, the Bruins baseball team blew a big opportunity. They blew it. They can't win the Big Ten regular season outright. What does that mean? I'll tell you next, and how they fell short in Game 1 versus Northwestern. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space Whether you're working with a big backyard, small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. There's a massive selection of outdoor essentials with Wayfair that makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From a comfy conversation set to sleek dining tables to outdoor decor, they've got it all, and prices that fit your budget, right? You think about with Wayfair, you're like, man, it's time to go outside. It's starting to get a little warmer, right? When Memorial Day is coming around, you're like, okay, around that weekend definitely is when the weather gets warmer, and that's what it's going to be. You want to be outside. You want to have a barbecue outside. You want to be with the warm weather having those fun conversations. Well, go grab that new patio dining set. Add some string lights and Wayfair. It's going to help extend your outdoor dining space, or for me, might be a new fun balcony area I get to move into next year. What am I going to do? I'll go to Wayfair and transform that bad boy and make it into a nice, breezy area to have some fun conversations. With the mix of styles, Wayfair makes it super easy to find pieces that match your vibe without spending a fortune, because delivery is free and hassle-free even for the big stuff. Shop for a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Cruising on to the final segment of Locked On UCLA, we are talking about the UCLA baseball team because they had a glorious opportunity, John Savage's club, with a win to climb into a first-place tie with Northwestern. If UCLA wanted to have an outright Big Ten regular season championship, they needed to sweep Northwestern and then hope Oregon wins 2 out of 3 or sweeps, because UCLA was a game ahead of them in the loss column. A sweep or winning 2 out of 3 by Oregon would have ensured UCLA outright Big Ten champs and the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament. Now that's no longer in sight, simply because they lost one game. One game. All right, what does that mean? Well, Oregon run ruled. They straight mercied Iowa in Iowa game 1. All right, they just beat the brakes off of them. So, of course, the Bruins, with that knowledge, a Thursday night start in Westwood. The Bruins they're down 2-0 after the top of the first inning. Lose the game to Northwestern 9-4. A team that's under 500 in the Big Ten, that came into the series under 500 at 24-25. And UCLA, with their Friday night starter, Ian May, couldn't get past 2 1/3, gave up 6 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned. And of course, as much as I talked about how good this defense was, they're the one that made the one error that cost them a run. And Ian May, which is one of the big bugaboos for this UCLA pitching staff, you look at their ERAs, you look at their peripheral numbers. The starting staff is rough. Now, the bullpen has done some great work. This was not one of those days where they gave up 5 runs in relief in the 7th inning on, where UCLA tried to stage a comeback. They were down 4-0, got a run in the 4th. Down 6-1 heading bottom 7, scored 3 bottom 7, but couldn't sustain a comeback, and then Northwestern put them away 9-4, out hitting the Bruins, leaving more guys in the Bruins, playing cleaner defense in the Bruins, doing just about everything. It was Ryan Kucherak, who went 3 for 4, 3 RBIs with the walk, and hit 2 bombs against UCLA at Jackie Robinson. Frustrating 3.5 hours for a game that started at 4. A weird day to have a game at 4 on a Thursday. I'm not really sure why that game was started at 4. Maybe there's other reasons that I don't know. It's a beautiful day yesterday. Just frustrating that Northwestern used 2 pitchers, got great relief work from Crawford Wade, and the Bruins used a total of 7 pitchers in game 1 to lose 9-4. 7 pitchers, in which 5 of them gave up runs. That is not the reason for success. A team that's ranked top 14, that is, 1, trying to win the Big Ten title, 2, get a good Big Ten tournament seed, 3, you lose this series to Northwestern. That's your 3rd series loss in the last 5 weekends, I think. That's tough to tell the committee we should give you a host site when there's already 3 very deserving teams on the West Coast. Irvine, Oregon, Oregon State for hosting with great sites to host. And if they want to get a 4th West Coast regional out of 16 teams, they could. There are quite a few West Coast teams that'll make it this year. And since the Big 12 obviously has the Arizonas and the Arizona States of the world, they might throw them in a UCLA regional or an Irvine regional. Otherwise, they're going to throw Irvine or UCLA in the regional that they're hosting and just be like, all right, battle it out. And then the other Big Ten team or another West Coast team, they'll throw them to Oregon State. All right, because they'll keep all the West Coast teams on one side, so there's no travel. and just wait till the Supers in Omaha for teams to travel consistently. So why is it impossible for UCLA to win the outright championship? Right now, UCLA is tied for second with Oregon, who is 20-8, right behind Iowa, who's 21-7. If Oregon wins again against Iowa, that means Iowa would have 8 losses. Say UCLA rebounds and they beats Northwestern. We could have a 3-way tie at the end. By the next time you're watching this podcast, on the second day of the final regular season weekend of Big Ten play, Iowa, Oregon, and UCLA could all be tied for first place. The problem is UCLA lost the tiebreaker to Oregon because they lost that series 2 out of 3 Easter weekend in Eugene. Now, if Iowa wins one and then Oregon wins one, they split their last 2 games. UCLA wins the last 2 games against Northwestern. The Bruins will finish tied atop the likes of the Big Ten regular season with no real tiebreaker. Obviously, they'll do this, but they haven't played head-to-head. UCLA, Iowa, which kind of sucks when you have 30 billion teams in a conference. That's just the reality of the situation. Now, if they had swept Northwestern, they wouldn't have to worry about it. They would be tied with Iowa, and they'd be guaranteed with 2 more wins to have at least a share of the Big Ten title. They still might get that if they win their 2 games. They'll be co-champs. It just won't feel as special because they already lost the 2 out of 3 to Oregon. Oregon will have the 1 seed because of the head-to-head, and UCLA will at least have the 2 seed. Now, if things go really bad, the Bruins could fall to the 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament, and you don't really want that. 3rd in the Big Ten Conference. If they're falling to the 3 seed in the Big Ten Conference tournament, and you lose to another bad team there, on top of a bad loss to Northwestern at home, that's not going to help your hosting credentials. Now, if you're looking at who swung the bat well the other day, UCLA had 3 guys with 2 hits, Roman Martin, Rock Chalowski, who's getting hype as the number 1 pick in the 2026 MLB draft, and Dean West, the UCLA left fielder. But the Bruins left 10 guys on base with Mulavai Lavu, who's been great defensively, had a bad day at the plate the other day, AJ Salgado, a super senior. The Bruins need to drive in guys, but it's got to be helped out by the pitching staff. As much as they put in a lot of work, this team is going to make the tournament. You don't want to go to travel to Irvine. You want to host a regional, which very well could be one of the last ones you host at Jackie Robinson, considering that future is up in the air. You don't want to believe that the lease agreement is going to stay the next 10 years after this offseason. Could very well be the last one they host at Jackie Robinson Stadium before the Bruins maybe find a new home, or maybe they're on the road like USC's been the last couple of years waiting for their stadium to be rebuilt and redone. For now, the Bruins need to help themselves out. Win 2. If UCLA wins 2 with 1 Oregon win in the rest of the season, in the rest of the regular season, 1 Oregon win over Iowa, 2 UCLA wins, at least guarantees them a share of the Big Ten crown, which they can put on a banner, but they would be the 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. But the glaring problem for their postseason hopes, where are they going to get out of their starting pitching? We'll have to talk about that more later in future Locked On UCLA episodes. From now until then, like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fights. Go softball. Dominate your regional. We'll talk more about that over the weekend. And thanks for tuning in. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.